The Iranian forces just seized a Marshall Islands flagged oil tanker on its way to Singapore, and it forced it to go to Iranian shores after it was about to go through the Hormuz Strait. The origin was the UAE, and this has been confirmed by a US official. As a matter of fact, all of this happened whilst it was being monitored by an American MQ-4C. What's happening? We thought that things de-escalated. Israel also attacked the yellow line inside of the yellow line in Gaza, and there was one martyr and 2 were wounded. The United States is trying to push for a UN resolution and is trying to apply pressure on the members to let it pass as soon as possible. But Russia, China, and some of the Arab countries are rejecting this proposal as it's being pushed for by the United States and are requesting some amendments. Let's begin with Iran. An oil tanker was passing through, like we said, Iran, most likely the IRGC, and that again is according to US official. However, we had similar situations before where Iran did not declare that they are taking over a certain oil tanker or a ship and forcing it to go to Iranian shores. As a matter of fact, during the 12-day war between Iran and Israel, after the hostile acts of terror coming from the United States of America and Israel against the Islamic Republic of Iran, Iran prevented several ships from going through the Hormuz Strait. Are we seeing an escalation here where Iran is likely to have more of these oil tankers or ships seized or totally block the Hormuz Strait? This is one of the most strategic things that Iran can do and hasn't done since. As a matter of fact, Iran is a very reasonable player in terms of its capabilities and what it can do. The United States, several Western establishments, the United States administration, several Western establishments backing the genocidal entity of terror and participating with it in the genocide against the Palestinians and escalations against regional, independent, sovereign countries, have always been hostile towards Iran, despite the fact that Iran reached out multiple times and, as a matter of fact, reached an agreement with the Obama administration at the time in relation to their nuclear project, an agreement that none other than Donald Trump ripped to shreds and completely backtracked on, only for him later on to come up with these talks in the past year, for them to collapse only and Israel to start attacking Iran, and Donald Trump participating in these acts of terror and also targeting Iran with several strikes as a way out for Israel, because Israel wouldn't have survived without the United States. Israel would have been wiped off the map had it not been for the Trump administration and its support, and other, of course, American administrations, continued support, and the final rescue rope for Benjamin Netanyahu. So what's happening now? Well, behind the scenes, there have been many talks between Iran and several countries, including the United States of America, only for them to collapse. And it proved to be a case where the supreme leader of Iran, Sayyid Ali Khamenei, was actually right. He told the Iranian diplomats and politicians at the time, there's no point in talking to the United States administration because it's a treacherous administration who doesn't take agreements seriously and backtracks on them, and you have evidence. And that evidence was in the form of Donald Trump, Zionist-owned Donald Trump, backing off from the agreements that America had with Iran, and then the poodle nations of Europe following the United States and not saying a word and continuing the hostilities against Iran. As a matter of fact, some of them recently introduced new sanctions against Iran that included Turkey even. So there's all of this situation happening in the background. The Iranians told them several times they were open for negotiations and talks, but the American administration clearly backed by or ordered by their Zionist masters, were asking Iran things that were completely out of order. Number one, let's not forget that during the 12-day war, Donald Trump asked Iran to surrender. Surrender? Who are you? Who do you think you are, you arrogant little Zionist? Who do you think you are for Iran to surrender? Iran has been preparing for this moment for decades now. Iran is an ancient nation with a rich history, with power to deter the real terrorists on this earth from attacking it. And guess what? They exercised this power when they taught the child-killing Zionists multiple lessons in the 12-day war, when the huge Iranian hypersonic and ballistic missiles were landing on the state of pedophiles and child killers of Israel. Then Donald Trump came to the rescue of Israel after realizing Iran's might, power, and strength, and the fact that the Iranian nation cannot be messed with, regardless of anything that happens in the region. They went back, and Iran told them from that time, that's it. We lost trust. I mean, how much do you want us to talk and go back and forth? Now, some European countries tried to de-escalate the matters, and there were continued talks and negotiations in several European capitals and other capitals too, outside of Europe, to try and reach an agreement. But then again, these European countries or administrations were having the same demands, the exact same demands that the United States and Israel want from Iran that weren't even there before. Let's not forget, Donald Trump, in the beginning of the year, he was saying, even if there's no agreement with Iran, I don't think there's going to be lots of problems, even if we don't have a nuclear agreement. Then after Israel started to apply more pressure against Donald Trump, he started to demand exactly what Israel wants. It stopped being about the nuclear program. He wanted them to completely get rid of the nuclear program, something which wasn't on the table whatsoever in the beginning. They were talking about reduction, enrichment, stuff like that. Then he started to say, no nuclear program whatsoever, and you can outsource it or buy. The arrogance, the neo-colonial empire arrogance. Don't develop, buy. Be dependent on us because we need you to be slaves for our masters, the masters of Zion. Iran, of course, told them no. And it wasn't only the nuclear program, it was their strategic missile capabilities. They asked Iran not to develop weapons and get rid of all of their missiles that are longer than 500 kilometers. Can it be clearer? The same missiles that deterred the pedophile genocidal entity of Israel, they want them to get rid of them. The whole world was celebrating Iran's attacks on Israel. As a matter of fact, everyone was sad when Iran stopped attacking them. They asked them to finish the job. Of course, Iran has different calculations and long-term, and they view this as a long-term battle against Israel. But the people were upset that it actually stopped. Everyone was celebrating. People started to create new songs, Boom Boom Tel Aviv and what have you. Everyone was happy, joyful. It was euphoric for the population of the earth, seeing the child murderers get the punishment that they deserve, finally, from a country that dared to attack them. Of course, forget about all of the Zionist mouthpieces and the defeatists who were saying, oh, what do they do? And it's all an act. Shut up. Shut up, you despicable, shameful imbeciles. Iran's missiles to this day are being remembered very well in Israel. Everyone with an ounce of brain saw what happened when Iran was attacking Israel. But now, and despite the fact that Iran views diplomatic solutions as the ideal means to reach their goals and to deal with other nations. And despite the fact that Iran only attacked Israel based on international law, the same international law that the people who created piss on, they are now having certain moves that are telling everyone, don't think that we can't. And they will have their own reasons. And these oil tankers, by the way, they could have had something to do with the United States or any sort of dealings. Let's not forget that they have a lot of espionage work in that area against Iran, and they constantly fly their drones and UAVs against Iran. Iran took some of them in recent years, and they also actually reverse engineered some of them. Okay, apart from this confirmation from the United States that said that, well, this Iranian force came on that ship and took control, took it to Iranian shores after it departed the Ajman port in the UAE. The United States only confirmed that, but officially, like people say, anonymously were saying that, an official said that, there was nothing from the United States and nothing from Iran. But clearly we're having certain messages here. Certain messages being exchanged, and Iran is telling them that we didn't say the final word. And we have power. We're willing to exercise that power, and don't test us. Do not test us. Because if you do, that little genocidal, pedophile nation state of Israel will be wiped off the map. That's what Iran is telling them. And don't think that there were certain changes here and there and that is affecting us. It's not going to help anyone. And when the time comes, this little entity of yours will be erased. Iran is telling them that clearly. Now, this is happening alongside multiple developments on the international front in relation to the stabilization force in Gaza. Gaza stabilization force proposal by US gets pushback from Russia, China, and Arabs. The United States, again, alongside Israel, they want this international force in Gaza to be an extension of the IDF and carry out the dirty work of the depraved genocidal Zionist entity of terror. They want them to go and disarm the Palestinian resistance. Now, they are trying to make it a UN resolution so that it can have an international backing, and they're very carefully working on having these wordings that everyone would have to abide by. Therefore, we have certain resistance coming from Russia, China, and some Arab countries. By the way, we're primarily talking about Algeria because some of the Arab states are irrelevant in this matter. Even some of the mediators. Now, they're talking about this force only going there to disarm the Palestinians, disarming any non-state armed group. Non-state armed group. Is there a state? Has there been, in the past several decades, a Palestinian state, recognized, official, sovereign, non-dependent, without any Zionist infiltration or control? We had a region that was liberated and therefore faced war from the whole world almost. Embargo, blockade, everything from Israel, the United States, the UK, other countries too. After democratic elections, the most democratic elections in the history of the Arab world, according to the previous American president, Jimmy Carter. And what are they going to do? You didn't recognize them. They had an armed movement. They had their police, and they had total legit armed resistance. What do you mean non-state armed groups? What state? Does being a state validate you and your actions? Israel is technically a state. The United States is a country, isn't it? What do they do on the ground? The most barbaric heinous crimes on earth. They use chemical weapons, they use nuclear weapons, they use destruction, bombs, 1-ton bombs on infants and children. These are states. So if you're trying to whitewash the fact that you're being a state, therefore you are able to conduct acts of terror officially, and we don't buy that, I'm afraid. The resistance is legitimate by international law, by human law, and by divine law. No one can argue with that. Anyone who wants to argue with that can shut his mouth. Now, China and Russia and other countries are asking for certain amendments. These amendments relate to several things. They're talking about the role of the ISF, the International Stabilization Force, but they're also talking about the Board of Peace. You see the Board of Peace, the Blair, the War Criminal Board of Peace, Board of Terror, Board of Tyranny, Board of War Crimes and Destruction. Tony Blair leading a Board of Peace. Are you kidding me? The man killed 1 million Iraqis. The man killed infants and children, a war criminal, a despicable, hideous war criminal who looks like Satan himself. Do you think this man can do anything? Do you think the Palestinian people accept this man? If he walks in the streets of London, people will spit on his face. British people, as in white British people, will be spitting on his face. Are you going to tell me that he's going to go and lead a Board of Peace in Gaza and try and make money for him and his son and the genocide cartel? Do you think that that's going to be accepted by the Palestinian people? They will spit on him. But now they're trying to make it an international resolution. An international resolution backed by the UN, led by Trump, or he wants people to call him His Majesty Trump. He's obsessed with being a king. Throwing poo at American people protesting against him, like he had that AI video, and then another AI video with the golden statue of him in Gaza. And Despicable Blair. Despicable Blair and Genocide Trump are not going to be leading nothing. They're trying to do that, and they are in a rush. Marco Rubio, Zayo Rubio, was trying to hurry things up. Like, oh yeah, be quick about it. We need to get it back. And then people to hold on a second. Hold on. Wait. We need to have some conversations here. But of course, they're run by the Zionist lobby, ordered by the Zionist lobby. If not, well, we saw the Epstein files. Can you send me a photo of you with a child, like Epstein sent to Tom Barrack now, who's the recent or new member, official member of the Epstein files? Trump, we already know he's there. And then the other members of the genocide cartel. Chances are this resolution is not going to pass in the form that the United States wants it to. They are trying to impose a new reality on the Palestinian people. And despite the fact that the Palestinian resistance showed complete transparency in relation to the ceasefire, they adhered to the ceasefire. Now we have the genocidal pedophile state targeting people again. One martyr and several were wounded in Israeli attacks against the civilian people inside of the yellow line in Gaza. Simultaneously with this call of the United States to pass this resolution as a hint coming from Israel that, look what we're going to do. So it's not enough for the people to be flooded with water. The people are being flooded with water now, by the way, in Gaza. They're suffering so much with this winter. Tens of thousands of families had to be displaced from areas where they were already displaced from. The situation is beyond awful for the population. What Israel is doing is basically, look at that. That's just one image of one child. We have infants, children, babies having to be removed, women, men, elderly. For Israel, that's not enough. Slow-mo genocide is not enough. We have to threaten people with attacks, and therefore we resort to killing them simultaneously with this American demand to pass this resolution in the United Nations. An entity of terror backed by a greater entity of terror in the form of Israel and the United States of America, again trying to impose their will. Iran, on the other hand, telling them that we're here, and if things go the wrong way, we have certain things that we can operate on and conduct. And let's not forget that Yemen also, in the form of Ansarullah, they also de-escalated slightly, but that front will be open again so long as if the American and Israeli sides go back to a full-scale war in Gaza. Is Israel serious about going to a full-scale war in Gaza? And is that something that the United States wants to do? Technically and militarily, Israel is a failure upon 20 failures. Their military was humiliated on the 7th of October. Their military was defeated on the sand of Gaza. The heads of the child-killing, pedophile, TikTok depraved, diaper, nappy army were roasted in Gaza. They were running away from people fighting them with nothing but belief and bare feet. Who are they going to fight? They can carry out strikes. That's what they can carry out strikes, aerial strikes, and kill a few infants and incubator locations and, children. They like that. Sadism, the sadistic entity. On the ground, they're not going to be able to. The United States made it clear that they're not going to have boots on ground. And even with this new base in Gaza, Trump reiterated that he's not going to have boots on ground. As a matter of fact, no one wants to have boots on ground in Gaza. Who wants to have boots on ground in Gaza? They saw what the Palestinian resistance did to supposedly the most powerful army in the Middle East. They wiped the floor with them. They were running around like the cowards that they are, running away from people with bare feet. And whenever these people with bare feet found them, they downed an explosive device and were burning 14 child-killing monsters at a time. That's what they were doing. Does any army want to go to Gaza? No one wants to go to Gaza. They showed the whole world what they're made of. Starved, genocided, and rising up against this depraved army out of nowhere up until the last second. And if they did it once, they'll do it 20 more times. But the United States is trying its luck. They're trying their luck based on the demands of the Zionist masters, and they're trying their luck based on the developments that are happening on the ground. They're telling people, look, there is de-escalation. Only 3, 4, 5 people getting killed a day, and people are dying in a slow-mo genocide, but we're not like killing them in the hundreds. So please love us. We are humane. We are the enlightened ones. We are the supreme people of this earth. We're better than everyone. Please accept the plan. But the problem is no one's buying it. Americans are not buying it. Europeans are not buying it. The world is not buying it. No one is buying your BS ever again. We know exactly who you are and what you are. Therefore, it's going to be very difficult to pass a UN resolution based on the demands of Israel to have an ISF working on behalf of Israel. Because even if they do, that same ISF will not even enter Gaza because no one wants to go to Gaza and face the Palestinian resistance.